And a reminder that the vice presidential debate is Thursday night. You can catch it right here on MSNBC with analysis and reaction. So we will have a rebroadcast as well of Friday's first presidential debate. That'll be here at 4 Eastern on MSNBC.
I will vote against this bill unless it's very, very different from what's been put up. The one change they're talking about making, just to give you an idea of how they seem to be doing something and really are just going with the president's plan, says that we're going to pay for this cost by selling some future president that he has to make a proposal to Congress to generate revenue. Well, a president can make a proposal to Congress at any time. Telling him that he has to make a proposal is kind of silly, because if he makes a proposal he doesn't want to make and he tells us he doesn't like his own proposal, well, that's just a waste of paper. So presidents can always propose revenue bills. We take seriously those proposals that the president himself actually likes, and to say that the president can make a revenue proposal 2, 3, 4 years from now as a pay-for this shows you the kind of window dressing that's going on to make it look like they've changed the proposal, when in fact it remains $700 billion for George Bush in unmarked bills.
Right now, there is a bailout breakthrough on Capitol Hill. Congressional leaders in the Bush administration have reached a tentative deal. At the heart of the plan, $700 billion for the government to buy bad debts from banks and other investors, all in an effort to shore up the financial markets and avoid a recession. This announcement was made early this morning, not too long after midnight. Congressional leaders say they want the House to vote on the bill tomorrow. If the bill is approved by the House and the Senate, half of the money, $350 billion, would be made available immediately. Then down the road, if Congress doesn't think the bailout program is working, it could vote to block the rest of the money. California Representative Brad Sherman is a Democrat and a member of the Financial Services Committee, and he joins us right now. Good morning to you, sir.
Good to be with you, Alex. And in that description of the bill, you had it a little wrong.
Oh, straighten it out.
The second 350, in order for Congress to block, we would have to pass a resolution of disapproval over the president's veto, 2/3 of both houses. So any provision that we could stop the whole $700 billion is a pure illusion, a deliberate illusion.
Okay, well, thank you for clarifying that, Congressman Sherman. Let's get to something here, though. The Democrats holding a majority, and you probably could have gotten a bill passed without significant Republican support. Why the effort to bring so many others on board?
I don't think we could have passed a bill without significant Republican support for a couple of reasons. First, there are a lot of us who are incredibly skeptical. And second, Democrats are insisting that this be viewed as the Republican bill and a Republican administration proposal and the Republican mess that we are helping them to clean up. Taking ownership of this bill is something Democrats were reluctant to do. Our feeling is that if you're going to waste $700 billion, at least we ought to be able to blame Republicans for it.
So the current bill that we're going to see, this 100 pages or so, is this a GOP bill or is it a Democrat bill?
It's basically Bush's bill with where he has whipped this country into such a panic that our leadership has agreed to take what is basically the Bush proposal and make some tiny changes to it, and then there's an effort by the administration to exaggerate those changes, just as in your opening graphic, where had I not stepped in, people would have thought that Congress had a real way to limit this bill to 350. No, once this bill passes, the administration gets $700 billion.
Although in all fairness, and I understand you're being very detailed here, I want to make this point that you could vote to block the rest of the money from being spent, whether or not you would get that vote, correct?
Well, we could vote tomorrow. We could give the president $2 trillion and then assemble the next day and repeal it. We can always pass a law, but to say that we could pass a resolution of disapproval is just to say we're not putting ourselves out of business. But in order to pass something, we have to overcome a presidential veto. Now, what do you think of the chances of that?
Well, granted, you're putting that in perspective there. I'd like to play some of the comments for you earlier that were made by Senator Reid this morning, and I want to get your reaction to it on the other side.
This evening has been extremely difficult. We've had a number of calls with the White House and others. And I have to say the breakthrough came about an hour ago with the Speaker coming up with an idea that hadn't been formulated, but it was enough to get, I think, this so we can commit it to paper.
So calls from the White House and others. Do you know who the others that Senator Reid was referring to, who they are?
No, but elements of the establishment of Wall Street, of members of the Wall Street boards, are going all out for this money. They're whipping up a panic. I mean, there is a real problem with our economy here, but they're whipping up a panic. They can taste the $700 billion, and they're hell-bent to get it.
Okay. The Speaker's planning to vote on it. Are you?
I will vote against this bill unless it's very, very different from what's been put up. The one change they're talking about making, just to give you an idea of how they seem to be doing something and really are just going with the president's plan, says that we're going to pay for this cost by selling some future president that he has to make a proposal to Congress to generate revenue. Well, a president can make a proposal to Congress at any time. Telling him that he has to make a proposal is kind of silly, because if he makes a proposal he doesn't want to make and he tells us he doesn't like his own proposal, well, that's just a waste of paper. So presidents can always propose revenue bills. We take seriously those proposals that the president himself actually likes, and to say that the president can make a revenue proposal 2, 3, 4 years from now as a pay-for this shows you the kind of window dressing that's going on to make it look like they've changed the proposal when in fact it remains $700 billion for George Bush in unmarked bills.
California Democratic Representative Brad Sherman, thank you very much for weighing in. Appreciate that, sir. And here's what Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson had to say about the agreement.
We've been working very hard on this, and we've made great progress toward a deal which will work and will be effective in the marketplace and, effective for all Americans.
Secretary Paulson, Tom, who says this bill will be effective, do lawmakers on both sides of the aisle agree on that?
No. No. They've been fighting about it all week. It's a sure thing in the Senate. It's probably a sure thing in the House. The question is how many House Republicans are still going to refuse to sign on. If you're just waking up, this is really history-making. Here are the details, because this is the biggest bailout since the Great Depression. The government on this deal, $750 billion, will be able to renegotiate bad mortgages in the hope of keeping homeowners in their homes. The taxpayers will get an ownership stake in the companies if the government bails out through non-voting stock warrants. Here's a key House Republican demand. They want to create an insurance program that essentially would mean the people who hold, or the firms that hold those bad loans now, instead of offloading them to the government, could instead buy insurance, continue to hold them, and buy insurance anyway. Republicans wanted that, House Republicans, because they really felt like this is Wall Street's problem, not Main Street's. Moving on, the plan also includes limits on executive compensation in bailed out companies. They don't want golden parachutes. And lastly, the financial sector, this is a big one, the financial sector could be responsible for reimbursing the taxpayer if the taxpayer doesn't get the money back after a number of years, for example, 5 years. Now, as you mentioned, this was all worked out over the course of the past 9 days, and specifically into this late-night session that lasted until about 1 a.m. or so. The key is now going to be getting the language right. They want to put it on the internet, let the public digest it for 24 hours or so, and then they want to try to bring it to a House vote as early as tomorrow. They also want to get out of Washington, D.C., because we have the Jewish holidays, or the holy days rather, coming up Monday night, and so they want lawmakers who have to make their way all the way to California, they want to give them time to get out of town as well. But that's where they stand right now. Hopefully a House vote in the morning, maybe a Senate vote later in the week.
Tom, I have so many questions for which we won't have time this time, but one I want to pick up on is that last point that you made, point number 5 that you said was a big one, and the fact that basically you've got the financial industry responsible for paying things back in a timely fashion within 5 years if the taxpayers aren't made whole on this. If that happens, who's got the money to pay back? Where's that money come from?
Yeah, and this is all open to interpretation, and we don't have the legislative language yet. So this is really a conceptual thing right now that I don't even have all the answers to.
Well, how's that? I don't get it. I mean, if the financial industry isn't doing well enough to pay back the industry, where are they going to get the money from?
But the hope
isn't doing well to pay back taxpayers, I mean.
Well, keep in mind, the hope is that by offloading all of this bad debt, the financial sector can essentially reboot themselves and get back up and running, and in a number of years be profitable again. And if these bad mortgages have not started to, if the taxpayer isn't starting to get the return on these bad mortgages that they've picked up, then the financial industry would have to start reimbursing the taxpayer. But there's a lot of, T's to be crossed and I's to be dotted here.
Yeah.